51.7.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Now, the Sherman is officially the fastest wheel on the market. Just wow, man. I just watched the video from Watt Rides and I was blown away. We know that V was able to push it to 51 miles per hour, but there was still some doubt out there because of how light she is. You know what I mean? So one thing we have to take into consideration is this: speed and performance in general is extremely relative. Relative to what? Well, relative to weight, temperature, the wheel itself, batteries, etc. Let's look at this from eWheels, for example. So in the section on eWheels info and support, click on Are eWheels Safe to Ride? Here you'll find this. The safety of the electric unicycle, or e-wheel, is mainly dependent on the quality of its components, especially the choice of the battery cells. At eWheels, we independently source our own high-power battery cells that are vastly superior to those offered by the manufacturers. This not only gives you increased acceleration and higher potential sustained speed, but also makes the wheel more responsive. These batteries provide an increased safety margin, while many other wheels might cut out under similar riding conditions. Each e-wheel model has its own distinct limitations and capabilities. Before starting, the rider should familiarize him or herself with the product specifications, which can give a guidance on each model's capabilities. The owner should exercise caution, especially in the beginning, to understand the wheel's limits and potential. We have found that if accidents do happen, they typically take place with an inexperienced rider without adequate safety gear or understanding of the wheel's limits. We strongly recommend that, at a minimum, riders wear knee, elbow pads, wrist guards, and helmet. Guys, if you want to support Ustride, definitely check out my Teespring store, where I pretty much have this concept called KYW and KYE. KYW represents Know Your Wheel, and KYE is Know Your Environment. I just came out with the KYE one, so I've said it for many years, but I've never actually made a shirt out of it. So definitely, if you want to support Ustride, go to Teespring store, link in the description, and purchase one of the KYW shirts. So we see that just because a wheel has a massive motor doesn't mean it will perform as expected unless it matches that big motor with a high performance battery. As stated by eWheels, the idea is to maintain performance at a consistent rate without any hiccups, regardless of circumstance, like bumps, over torquing, weight, etc. You name it. The battery should be able to manage that. So the Sherman is fitted with a 2500 watt motor and a 3200 watt hour battery. And some subscribers have already mentioned that it's not just the fact that we have a 3200 watt battery. That's just looking at it from a macro level. So if we look a little bit deeper, a more micro level at this, we should also know exactly what type of cells. For example, is it a 21700 cell or is it an 18650? And if we go even deeper, we will have to ask, what manufacturer are we talking about here? So all these factors come into play with performance in mind. Now, shout out to Gotway, because for a long time, other manufacturers weren't able to come close to the Gotway's performance, because besides designing and manufacturing EUCs and other PEVs, battery management is probably the most important aspect in this sector. And Gotway is pretty much a leader in that. With a scooter or an EV bike or car, we don't have to worry about cutouts since they have more than one wheel. We, on the other hand, only have one wheel to depend on, which includes all kinds of electronics and other mechanics. Most of us would shy away from explaining exactly how it works. So in comes Sherman, right? Well, it makes sense that at this point in time, the only people daring enough to create something that would put the mighty Gotway to shame would be former engineers from the same company, Gotway, with enough combined experience to make us trust them to the levels that we do right now. I mean, just think about it. If the Sherman was built by another company that we knew nothing about. And worse, we had no history of their engineers in order to build some type of reputation. I don't think most of us would oblige, but I don't know. Now, what's interesting to note here is that with most Gotway machines, the high performance ones, there's at least an 8 to 10 mile per hour buffer from the spec'd out top speed, which means a cutout is highly unlikely on a Gotway machine unless the rider is completely unaware of exactly how that machine works, which is mostly the case. Now, you can check out this amazing video from the Creative Nomad in the links somewhere above, where she covers exactly this topic of who's responsible for crashes. Is it the rider or is it the wheel? And I think we can mostly all agree that it is the rider. But the point of this video is that we now have 2 instances of riders being able to push the Sherman to 50 plus miles per hour. And that's just fantastic, guys. That's amazing. Usually it takes me personally several weeks to really get used to a powerful machine like the high-speed MSP and now the Sherman to really determine the max top speed. But Watt Rides and V has been able to accomplish this in a short time. My only concern is whether or not there is a pedal dip on the Sherman just before cutout as with the Gotway machines, because then that would mean there's a lot more to go. Obviously, like I said, there's a 10 mile per hour buffer, so we know that the cutout speed for the Sherman is around 64 miles per hour. So just subtract 8 miles from that, and that should be your top speed theoretically. Now, usually when a rider finds out the absolute max top speed, that's, with the beeps just before cutout, there's a crash to go with it. For example, Phantomos. Okay. However, my methods are a bit different and does not include a crash, hence why it takes me a bit longer to find out the absolute top speed before cutout. So I don't recommend anyone try this, but if you do find out the top speed, upload your results by visiting ustride.com and upload your results to the social section on the website. This is great news, guys. We are literally 10 miles from the 60 mile per hour wheel I've been seeking, and many others as well, but without the beeps. In the words of Ron's World Miami, we must respect the beep. That's the only way to remain safe for most riders. But for people like myself, V, and now Watt Rides, and many others that I don't know about, beeps is just the beginning. Anyway, guys, let's see if the Gotway Monster Pro will indeed make it past that speed threshold. Personally, I'm not interested in riding at 60 miles per hour, but I am very interested in knowing that I can keep up with traffic in inner city freeways without the worry of beeps or batteries. You know what I mean? The Sherman is so far the best option we have for this outcome. So till next time, guys, happy riding.